It usually begins with Adam Smith. Adam Smith published his Wealth of Nations in 1776. Back then, all economics was development economics because all the countries of the world were poor. This book helped give birth to economics as a modern science, but it's still the most important book on development economics which has been written. It's hard to get a handle on Smith's book because it's so wide-ranging, and so much of the economics we know has come from that book, either directly or indirectly. So rather than try to cover everything which is in there, which would take a course of its own, let's look at just a few highlights. The best way to learn about Adam Smith is to read some Adam Smith. Fortunately, The Wealth of Nations is online for free, and you can Google to it very easily. If you're interested in development economics, there are 3 sections in particular I think you should read. The first of those is Book 1, Chapter 1, of the Division of Labor. This is Smith's famous discussion of the pin factory, and he puts forward his well-known maxim, division of labor is limited by the extent of the market. As the size of a market grows larger, individuals can specialize more, they become more productive, production becomes more diverse, and this increase in productivity spurs economic growth, which in turn makes the size of the market yet bigger, which in turn leads to further division of labor and specialization. This is a key idea behind a lot of modern theories of development, including increasing returns to scale and the big push. The second section I would like to recommend is titled, How the Commerce of the Towns Contributed to the Improvement of the Country, Book 3, Chapter 4. If you read that chapter of Smith, and then you read modern development economics, say circa 1950-1960, it's striking actually how much more advanced and sophisticated Smith's discussion is. The profession in, say, 1960 was still struggling to catch up to the insights embedded in Wealth of Nations. Perhaps my favorite section of Wealth of Nations is Book 4, Chapter 5, Part 2. That's called Digression Concerning the Corn Trade and Corn Laws, and this is all about the price system. It's about how prices allocate resources, it's about how prices limit famine, it's about how speculators encourage corn and food more generally to be allocated to the times of the greatest need. It's probably the most important and most seminal description of the price system that any economist has written. When Alex and I wrote, "A price is a signal wrapped up in an incentive," in our principles text, we were really drawing upon this section from Adam Smith. Do go read those sections, but there's really much, much more in the book. There's a wonderful discussion of how wages are determined by productivity, of how nutrition is an investment in human capital, of capital accumulation and how capital accumulation bids up wages. Smith pioneered the idea of rent-seeking behavior. In this context, the notion that businessmen go to government to get monopoly privileges. Smith understood that exports per se are not the source of wealth, that importing more money or specie into a country, as mercantilism has suggested, is not a source of wealth. The book is remarkable for how much time it devotes to China, India, and the New World, all of course back in the 18th century. Smith had a marvelous analysis of public debt. He understood quite well the notion of public goods, the effects of taxation on economic growth, the importance of urbanization, the benefits of trade, the value of infrastructure, in his case roads, turnpikes, and canals for a growing economy, the possible costs of civil conflict on economic growth, the relevance of education, once again headed back to human capital, and overall he had a wise, pragmatic perspective on a wide array of economic issues, in each case really looking at the evidence and the theory taken together to see when the sphere of the market was appropriate and when government intervention might be wiser. Overall, what's so wonderful about Smith's book is not just its coverage of all these topics, but his vision of how they added up to an integrated whole, which became economics and also development economics, and the way in which he analyzes economic issues on a variety of different levels. So the balance between history and theory in the book, the balance between the general statement and the particular statement, overall show a fantastic wisdom, which to this day I think economists are still struggling to reattain. So if you're going to read only a few economics books in your lifetime, Smith should be one of them, and I recommend that you start with the sections outlined in this video.